Hi everyone, welcome to this U.S. History instructional video on Lesson 307, Reflections. To get to this lesson, go into your course and click on the Unit 3 tab, scroll down and click on 307, Reflections. In this lesson, we're going to be examining programs of the New Deal to assess their impact on American life and demonstrate mastery of important knowledge and skills learned in the previous lesson. This lesson is a review for Chapter 31, which goes over the New Deal programs, both the first New Deal and the second New Deal that President Roosevelt enacted once he became president during the Great Depression. The New Deal created so many programs affecting so many people that it's hard to grasp it all. Take some time to reflect on the people, the problems, and the programs as you practice skills in listening, observing, and analyzing. What are your thoughts on the New Deal? This lesson is going to bring you through the New Deal programs by giving you a virtual field trip to go through. Lots of different websites to explore and to look at. Everything in this lesson is based off of information that you've read in Chapter 31. If you have not read the chapter in the textbook, please make sure that you do so, either using your hard copy of the textbook or go to your American Odyssey PDF version or the online version here underneath Course Home. In this lesson, just like every other lesson in U.S. history, the daily checklist will tell you what you need to do. Sometimes your instructors will modify this, however. We are going to complete the virtual field trip in the lesson and complete the meeting needs heads-on activity within the course. We are not going to be completing the graded assignment. This is not due for you. The only written assignment that you guys have for Unit 3 is the 302 lyric analysis that was due on May 10th, as you guys can see here. If you are in the 2013 quarter 4 school year. If you are not and you're listening to this later on, don't worry about that due date. There is an online quiz with this lesson, so once you're done going through the lesson slides, you've reviewed Chapter 31 and done the virtual field trip, and you've done the online activity, you can go into the quiz and complete your quiz for today. As we go along into the course slides for 307 Reflections, you're going to notice a virtual field trip that they have. It's time to learn a little bit more about the Depression era, the problems, and the people that experienced it. Assess some firsthand experiences using the sites below. Consider the programs, what they were intended to do, and how they affected ordinary people. Then write a brief summary of your own observations about the people and the programs, highlighting at least 3 of them. Okay, now this portion here is referring to the graded activity, and they mentioned on the previous page you do not have to do this as a graded activity, but it might be helpful to think about a summary or write down some notes as you go through this virtual field trip, since you're probably going to be asked on a test about many of the programs that that were part of the New Deal. So make sure that you're paying close attention and you visit each of these websites for the purposes presented here. All right, so let's take a look at some of the websites that you're going to see on your tour. There are 3 websites provided here on the first slide, but if you click forward to slide 4, you're also going to see 5 more. Excuse me. If you continue to click through the slides, you'll see that at the end of the lesson there are chapter highlights. Okay, so after you've gone through the virtual tour, you can read through the chapter highlights, review the major concepts that you have before you go, and you take your quiz. Remember, this slide right here, the graded assignment, we are not doing. You are only doing 302 lyric analysis as the only written assignment in Unit 3. Okay, and it will prompt you to do the quiz. So let's go back to our virtual field trip now that you've seen the entire lesson. And let's take a look at some of these websites that we are are looking at here. What you guys are going to see a lot of in this virtual tour are primary resources. We've talked a lot about primary versus secondary resources in U.S. history. A primary resource is a resource that comes from the time period you are studying traditionally, or it is a first-hand account. It is somehow more directly connected to the event or the person or place that you are studying. For example, a photograph, as we see here, a photograph of New York, a New York soup kitchen line during the Great Depression would be a primary resource. Also, the two gentlemen that we have here, Mr. Hoskins and Mr. Buller, have two video interviews about their lives during the Great Depression and how it impacted their daily lives, including dealing with hunger, the loss of monetary funds, what unemployment rates were like, and what people were doing to help one another. During the Great Depression, there was no welfare yet established by the government. There were no food programs or food stamps. Most of the assistance that was given to people at the start of the Great Depression was based on private involvement, not by the government. So it's hard for us sometimes to realize that programs that are just a matter of our present day usual conversations like Social Security, welfare, and food stamps did not exist prior to the New Deal. Okay, so we're going to be seeing a lot of primary resources like those provided on this website. You're also going to be seeing some financial examples, and again, another interview with Mrs. Opitz's family account here. Millie was the daughter-in-law to a farmer, and the books that were given for the operation of the farm show how much money was made prior to the Great Depression and the financial impact of the Great Depression. He went from making a fairly good living to actually losing money during the Great Depression, and they discuss how difficult it was to get by. They are going to cover a lot of New Deal programs in this series, in this virtual field trip, and a lot of them were based on financial recovery or the three R's of the New Deal are relief, recovery, and reform. One of the things that they had to do, and that's very important, is the reform part. They wanted to make sure something like the Great Depression never happened again. And a lot of legal reform was established during this time period to change the instability of bank practices. Ironically, these are similar poor practices that were part of the problem that we saw in 2008 when the stock market crashed in the United States here in recent years, and there were problems with financial institutions. They weren't exactly the same kind of financial problems, but irresponsibility within banks is a problem that we had to address again in 2008. So this is going to be very much related to similar things in reform that they would try to establish, as the Obama administration has been trying to establish as well. So we have things like the FDIC, which ensures people's deposits in a bank. So if you have money in a bank, your money is actually insured by an insurance company. In case that bank goes out of business, you will get your money back. So this is an example of financial reform. Okay. One of the other things that was one of the three R's of the New Deal, it was reform and relief and recovery. Part of the relief effort was to get people money just enough to get by. Most people during the Great Depression were not looking for a handout. That was never part of the government's responsibility, and was not something that people were actually comfortable getting. But so many people were desperate for money to get by just to feed themselves, just to keep themselves clothed, not for any luxury items. They established the Social Security Administration in a way to help the young, the elderly, and the disabled to make sure that they were not falling through the cracks, meaning starving to death or dying from exposure without a home, without any kind of clothing. So Social Security started and began as a program to make sure that people were not falling through the cracks in society. So that was part of the relief effort. So we have reform and relief, and we also needed recovery. To recover appropriately, there were a lot of programs that Roosevelt wanted to initiate to make sure that job creation was at the top of the government's priority list. One of the programs that did this was the Work Progress Administration. Also, the Civilian Conservation Corps was another similar program like this. The government would create job opportunities and hire people to do work, giving them a basic pay. Frequently, that pay rate, as you see here on the screen, was about $1 a day. You can use this primary resource here and get a sense of what Stan Jensen here, this interviewee, experienced during the Great Depression and what the WPA provided for him during those years for him and his family. So the WPA payroll, it totaled quite a large number here, as you can see. That's almost 5 billion, and in those that money in the 1930s, that would have been a huge amount. So we've taken a look at recovery, relief, and reform. There are other agencies and other programs that you'll be going over here. The Federal Emergency Relief Administration, part of the relief portion of the New Deal. And it's also going to be talking about music as well, because music was a big deal during the 1930s as people tried to express hope, tried to express how they were dealing with their hardships, and it became a very influential time for music. Folk music, it was really big for swing music coming about. You had people like Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong became very big during this time period too. So there were a lot of musical, very influential musical aspects of the era that influenced the big band era and the swing era that would become very big, especially during the World War II years. So this is a look at what you guys are going to be seeing in the lesson. Make sure that you go through your virtual field trip. It's great stuff. Once you've gone through it, again, don't forget that you have your chapter highlights to go through, and it will prompt you again at the end of the session to take your quiz, which is located right here. If you need a recording to read the quiz questions to you while you're taking it, you can open up the quiz recording and do that. Good luck on your quiz.